My name is Ethan. I grew up in a small, forgettable town in Pennsylvania, but for the last couple of years I've been studying in Asheville, North Carolina, surrounded by the ancient Appalachian Mountains. My one true passion has always been exploring. The thrill of the open road, the challenge of a long hike, the solitude of camping. I have an old Kawasaki KLR 650, and on most weekends I'd just take off on my own. I'd ride the winding Blue Ridge Parkway or disappear onto Trail 5 and Trail 6 for hours. I'd sometimes invite one of my roommates, but I could tell their heart wasn't in it. They'd be physically present, but their eyes lacked the spark, the wonder that I felt whenever I was surrounded by those rolling, blue-hazed peaks. My dream was to find a person or a group who shared that same fire, people who looked at a desolate, forgotten place and saw an adventure, not a threat. But in the bubble of university life, most people were confined to a world of studying, eating, grabbing their phones, and sleeping. So I kept to myself. I'd grab my helmet and just go. It was during that misty, rainy season in the mountains when the world outside the city seems to come alive with color and sound. This day was no different. I left early, without breakfast, with a vague plan to grab a bite at a diner near the Harpers Creek trailhead. The drizzle was light, slicking the asphalt and creating that hissing sound under my tires that I've always found so soothing. When I arrived at the trailhead diner, I saw a group of guys already there. It was immediately clear they were serious. They had a rugged-looking Jeep and several high-end touring bikes that would make any enthusiast's head turn. I parked my Kawasaki to the side and went in to order breakfast. As I ate, I watched them, listening to their easy laughter and talk of different routes and trails. I'd noticed their eyes on me when I pulled up, not in an unfriendly or judgmental way, but with a simple look of recognition, the kind of look that says, "He's one of us." I'm usually not one to approach strangers, but this was different. This was about a shared passion. I decided to take a chance. Gathering my nerve, I walked over and asked, "You guys do a lot of touring?" They were completely relaxed. One of them, a guy who looked to be in his late 20s, immediately slid a chair out. "Yeah, man, come sit with us," he said. My remaining coffee was brought over, and as soon as I sat down, the conversation flowed as if I had known them for years. It felt like coming home. They told me they didn't just do short rides. They were seasoned adventurers. They'd done Skardu, Deosai, Sharon, and even explored routes in Gilgit-Baltistan, places so remote that most people would back away at the mere mention of them. I listened. A strange feeling churning inside me, a mix of awe and a sense of being left behind. The farthest I'd ever gone was a few hours past the state line. One of the guys, Alex, laughed. "Hey, if you have the passion, you just have to get out there. The rest falls into place." They asked for my number, and a few minutes later, I was added to their WhatsApp group, the Trail Seekers. It was obvious from the chat history that these guys were out exploring almost every single weekend. I was up front with them. I'm a student, living in a dorm. Long trips might be tough for me, but if you ever do a short weekend camp out, I'm definitely in. I've never actually camped before, but I've always wanted to. Another member, Ben, chimed in, "You're a student. Don't worry about it. We have all the gear, tents, supplies, everything. Just show up." I insisted I'd pay my share, but they brushed it off. These guys clearly came from good backgrounds. They were well-spoken, well-mannered, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace. I had found my tribe. They took off, and I headed back to my dorm. But my mind never really returned. A kind of boyish excitement took over me. I found myself waiting for the next weekend like a kid waiting for Christmas. Before the week was out, a plan was already forming in the group chat. This time, it was camping near the old Rewari Fire Watch Tower. I'd never even heard of the place, but when the location was shared, I saw it was on the far side of the Kotli Satian area, a remote forested mountain path. It was exactly the kind of environment I'd been searching for. A budget was calculated, and everyone was supposed to chip in. I wasn't asked to pay for gear, and honestly, they didn't pressure me for money at all, but I immediately transferred my share. For me, this wasn't just a camping trip. It was a dream coming true. The plan was set. Leave Saturday evening, stay the night, and head back Sunday morning. That Saturday, I was restless all day. I arrived at the meeting spot early, and soon the others rolled in. Some on bikes, others in the Jeep and a car. Seeing them all together, I realized just how serious they were. They had hiking sticks, headlamps, medical kits, power banks, and one guy even had a small walkie-talkie set. "What's with the walkie-talkies?" I asked. Alex laughed. "They come in handy where there's no cell signal." I just nodded, impressed. We set off. The rain was a gentle mist, and the air was filled with that rich, damp smell of earth and pine that you only find deep in the mountains. On the way, they had me pull over to show me a hidden reservoir, a stunning expanse of water I never knew existed despite living so close. I can't believe I've been in this area so long and had no idea this was here, I admitted. After about an hour and a half, we reached the base of the trail leading to the Rewari Fire Watch Tower. The cars couldn't go any further up the rugged path. We took the bikes as far as we could before parking them, then unloaded the gear from the Jeep and began the hike up. This being my first real camping trip, my heart was pounding with anticipation. The experienced guys walked with an easy, steady pace. When we reached the clearing, they said it was crucial to set up camp before dusk. The area was a wide, open meadow surrounded by towering pine trees, with the derelict watchtower standing silently off to one side. Everyone worked efficiently. Tents were unpacked and secured with ropes. Ground sheets were laid out. They even had a small generator for lights, which they tested briefly before nightfall. Then, preparations for a barbecue began. Firewood was gathered, a fire pit was prepared, and soon the fire was lit. The smoke billowed into the cooling air, and its sharp, woody scent filled me with a profound sense of joy. This, I thought to myself, this is exactly what I've been looking for. There were 7 of us in total. 2 of the guys, Mark and Chris, were obsessive hikers. "We're going to scout that upper ridge before it gets dark," they announced, grabbing their hiking sticks and one of the walkie-talkies. The other unit stayed with us at the base camp. As they left, they joked around, playing snippets of songs over the radio and one of the walkie-talkies. The other unit stayed with us at the base camp. As they left, they joked around, playing snippets of songs over the radio and making us laugh. At first, the mood was light, fun, perfect. But as time passed, the darkness began to creep in. Slowly at first, then all at once. The fire cast a warm, safe glow around us, but the moment you looked beyond it, into the forest, there was nothing but an impenetrable, inky blackness. It was a mountain darkness, the kind that swallows distances and twists the shapes of familiar things. The trees no longer looked like trees. They looked like silent, looming figures. Mark and Chris had been gone for over an hour. Shouldn't they be back by now? I asked, unable to hide my unease. Ben replied calmly, "Don't worry about them. Those guys are maniacs. They can stay out for hours." I saw that the others seemed perfectly relaxed, so I tried to be as well. We ate the barbecue, brewed tea, and someone played music on a portable speaker. We were laughing and talking But to be honest, a part of me felt a growing sense of dread. The place was as beautiful as it was silent, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being far too loud. The darkness was now absolute. The generator was on, casting a sterile circle of light around our camp, making the blackness beyond seem even deeper. And then, in an instant, everything changed. I was the first to notice it, a flicker of movement at the very edge of the light. It was nothing definite, just a feeling. Beside me, Alex suddenly went quiet. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "No," he said, a little too quickly. "Just thought I did." We changed the subject, but the easy atmosphere was shattered. The walkie-talkie from the hikers had been silent for some time now. Ben picked up our unit and pressed the button. "Mark, Chris, what's your status?" "Over." Nothing. Only static. He tried again. Still nothing. Everyone looked at each other. This time, no one was smiling. "They're probably just out of range," Ben said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Or they found a spot to sit and are just chilling," Alex added. I tried to believe them, but then something happened that sent a chill down my spine. A faint sound crackled from the speaker. It wasn't a voice. It was the wet, intimate sound of someone breathing, very close to the microphone, held for just a few seconds. Ben immediately pressed the walkie-talkie to his ear. "Who is this? Mark? Chris?" No reply. Just a few seconds of hissing static, and then silence. We were all just staring at each other. "What was that?" I asked. Alex tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just wind. But we all knew it wasn't. The sound had been too organic. Ben tried again. "Mark, if you can hear this, just say okay." A few moments of tense silence passed. Then a horrifyingly faint whisper crept through the static. It was so quiet that, had we not all been holding our breath, we would have missed it. "Turn the light off." Ah. I instantly looked at Alex. His face was pale. He had heard it too. Ben's expression hardened. He spoke into the radio, his voice strained. "What? What did you say? Speak clearly." After that, there was only silence. In that single moment, our celebration was over. The laughter and the music were gone. Alex quietly switched off the speaker. Now the only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the occasional pop of burning wood. And in that heavy silence, I felt it again. But this time it was distinct. A presence. Something had moved to the very edge of our circle of light and stopped. I cleared my throat. Is someone out there?" Ben glanced at the generator, then grabbed a powerful flashlight. But even its bright beam was swallowed by the wall of ink just a few feet from our camp. "Everyone get closer to the tents," Alex ordered in a low voice. We all huddled closer to the fire, but repositioned our chairs to be nearer to the tents. This was not the adventure I had wanted. Ben raised the walkie-talkie again, speaking slowly and clearly. "Mark, Chris, if you can hear me, just say you're okay. Where are you?" This time, a reply came instantly, and the voice was choked with a terror that was absolutely not a joke. "We're coming back. Stay quiet." It was followed by the unmistakable sound of people running through the woods, of twigs snapping, and of ragged, desperate gasps for air. And then the generator sputtered and died, plunging us into near-total darkness, the bonfire a lone flickering eye in the abyss. We were frozen. The sounds of running on the walkie-talkie had stopped, replaced by that same awful wet breathing. But this time it wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the darkness right in front of us. Alex fumbled for the flashlight, his hands shaking. He clicked it on, sweeping the beam across the tree line. For a split second, the light caught it. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a person. It was just long. A tall, gaunt shape of impossible angles. A silhouette that seemed to drink the light, its form briefly outlined against the trees before it folded back into the nothingness from which it came. It was as if someone was sitting there, just outside the circle of firelight, on the ground, perfectly still. Alex raised the walkie-talkie, his voice a harsh whisper. "Mark, are you close? There's someone sitting outside the camp. Look this way." A few moments of crackling silence, then Mark's voice came through, faint but clear. We see it too. Don't move. We're coming." After the radio went silent, a new kind of quiet fell over the camp. A dead quiet. The fire was still burning, but its heat seemed to have vanished. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the same spot, the spot where we thought we saw the figure. I was sitting in my chair, but in reality, only my body was there. My mind was standing on a razor's edge. I was trying to keep my breathing steady, but I couldn't control the frantic hammering of my heart. Alex spoke in a low, firm voice. "Nobody goes out there alone. Got it?" No one argued. It was a simple sentence, but in that moment everyone understood. This was no longer a normal situation. A few minutes passed. The shape in the darkness, the thing seemed to have retreated from the edge of the light, but we all felt that it hadn't left. Just then, the walkie-talkie crackled to life again. This time, the voice was audibly trembling, rushed. "We're at the bend just below the camp." It was Mark's voice, but it wasn't the same voice that had laughed its way up the mountain hours before. "Okay, come straight up. We're here," Ben replied. Mark's only response was, "Keep the light where it is. Don't come out." He was giving us the same warning they had received. We all switched on our flashlights, but didn't dare step outside the immediate camp area, huddling close together. A few minutes later, we heard footsteps. They weren't hurried, not like someone running. They were the cautious, deliberate steps of someone walking carefully, someone who kept looking over their shoulder. Then, two shadows emerged from the darkness. It was Mark and Chris. As they stepped into the firelight, I saw for the first time how profoundly a person can be changed by fear. Their clothes were caked with dirt. Their breathing was ragged, and their eyes darted around constantly. And the strangest thing, they kept glancing back into the darkness, as if they couldn't believe they had actually made it back to camp. They stumbled toward us, but didn't sit by the fire. First, they both turned and stared into the blackness they had just escaped. "What happened?" Alex asked. Mark didn't answer. He just dropped his pack, put his hands on his knees, and took a deep, shuddering breath. Chris was in even worse shape. He was trembling, and it wasn't from the cold. I knew that instantly. We gave them water and waited. After a few moments of heavy silence, Mark began to speak. "We went up the ridge, just a normal hike, like we always do." He paused as if searching for the right words. "At first, everything was fine. We were joking around on the radio." Ben cut in. "Then why did your voice change?" Mark lowered his head. It was Chris who spoke, his voice cracking. "Because there was someone else there." The air in the camp grew thick, heavy. I forced myself to ask, "What do you mean?" Mark looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw the kind of terror that comes from escaping something you cannot comprehend. When we were hiking up, we felt like we were being followed. "You always feel that way in the woods," Alex countered. Mark shook his head emphatically. "No. This wasn't a feeling." We heard footsteps, and they weren't ours. He explained that when they reached a point where the trees grew dense and the path narrowed, an unnatural silence had fallen. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of the wind. We stopped. Mark said, and that's when we realized whatever was behind us stopped too. Chris added in a small voice, and when we moved, it moved. My hands were slick with sweat. Mark continued, we thought it might be an animal. We made noise, banged our hiking sticks on the ground. Nothing. Then we started walking again, and the footsteps started again. By now, I was completely lost in their story. This didn't feel fake. These were the kinds of things that happen in places like this, but always to someone else. Then, Mark whispered, we felt like the sound was right next to us. Why didn't you see it? Alex asked. Mark said only one sentence, because it wasn't behind the trees. Chris clarified, his voice barely audible. We couldn't see it, but we could feel it watching us. There was a moment where no one asked the next question. We were all creating the horrifying image in our own minds. Mark said that's when the strange breathing started on the walkie-talkie, and that's when they told us to turn the lights off. We told you to kill the lights because it wasn't coming into the light, Chris finished. It was following us in the dark, and when we turned to come back down, we felt it turn too. I felt a chill spread through me despite sitting so close to the fire. Then how did you get back? Alex asked. Mark looked toward the edge of the camp, the very spot where we had seen the figure sitting. We were moving fast, but we stopped at one point. Chris's voice trembled. We stopped because we saw that something was already here. Right here, I breathed. Mark slowly nodded. We saw it from a distance, he said. Someone was sitting by the fire. We all instinctively glanced at the empty space by the flames. We thought it was one of you, Chris said, but the way it was sitting was wrong. Wrong how? Ben asked. Like it was folded, Mark said, unnaturally. And it wasn't moving. They kept coming down, using the walkie-talkie to warn us not to come out. Chris delivered the final terrifying detail. When we got close enough to see clearly, the chair was empty. After that sentence, nobody spoke for a long time. We were all sitting together, but now every one of us knew we weren't just together. We were trapped. We were all still reeling from Mark and Chris's story. The fire was burning, but it wasn't giving off warmth anymore, only light. And then, a strange sound cut through the silence. At first, it sounded like a car's central locking system, a quick electronic chirp. I immediately looked up. Ben was startled too. Alex whispered, "Was that a car alarm?" We all looked down the dark slope toward where we had parked the cars and the Jeep. A moment later, the sound came again. It was definitely a car's security alarm, the kind that chirps when it's touched. My heart began to pound. "There's no one down there," I said. Ben stood up but didn't leave the circle of light. He just peered into the darkness. "Something's moving around the cars," he said. We all knew one thing for certain. No one had gone down there. All the keys were in the camp. A few seconds later, another alarm chirped. Now it was two distinct sounds, one after the other, as if something was moving from one vehicle to the next. Chris said, his voice panicked, "That can't be a person." I thought to myself, even if it was, we should have been able to see them in this silence. Ben spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Nobody go down there. Whatever it is, it can come up here." We huddled even closer together, our eyes fixed on the absolute darkness at the bottom of the slope. Then, suddenly, all the sounds stopped. No more alarms, no more movement. It was as if something had deliberately made us aware that it wasn't just circling our camp. It could go anywhere it wanted. By the fire, at the edge of the light, one of the empty camp chairs moved slightly. Not like it was pulled, but like someone had just stood up from it, their foot dragging it slightly on the ground. None of us screamed. I think we all understood on some primal level that screaming was useless now. Ben whispered, his voice barely a tremor, "Everyone inside, now." We scrambled back toward the tents. The fire still blazed, but no one was sitting near it. A few moments later, the chair slid back into its original position, all on its own, and then silence. A silence so profound it felt like pressure in my ears. We spent the rest of the night awake. No one slept. We'd hear a sound from the deep woods, or we'd feel like something was walking around the perimeter of our camp, but we never saw it again. Just before dawn, the air changed. The darkness began to fade, and when the first light of morning broke through the trees, we made a silent, unanimous decision. We were leaving now. We threw our gear together. No breakfast, no coffee. As we descended the mountain, no one looked back. But I knew in my heart this was my first camping trip, and it would probably be my last. Narrative 2, The Hunters Do. It's a strange thing, the wilderness. It calls to some of us, promising peace, solitude, a connection to something ancient. But sometimes, when you answer that call, you find you are not the only one listening. And what you find in that primordial quiet is not peace, but a hunger that has waited a very long time. My name is not important. Let's just say I live in a part of the country where towns are small and the spaces between them are vast. I'm sharing this story because it needs to be told, but I can't attach my name to it. What happened to my friend and me, it left a mark that hasn't faded. My best friend's name is Leo, but we all call him Johnny. The two of us had a casual interest in hunting. We weren't professionals, and we didn't go often. It was just something to do when the mood struck. One day, Johnny called me up. The weather was turning cold, crisp. Perfect hunting weather, he said. Want to go? Without much thought, we made a plan. We didn't have any official permits, so we decided to drive far out of town, deep into the backcountry where no one would bother us. We drove for nearly 5 hours, ending up in a place that was utterly desolate. No houses, no farms, no lights, just open, scrubby plains and patches of thorny bushes. We set up a small camp. Just after sunset, we got lucky and bagged a hare. The night was cold and a sharp wind was picking up. We built a fire, cooked our catch, and ate. We sat there for hours, just talking and enjoying the solitude. I didn't realize how late it had gotten until I checked my phone. It was 11:30 p.m. We tossed the bones and leftover meat to the beagles we'd brought with us. After that, the silence of the plains felt deeper, more intense. And in that silence, I felt the first prickle of unease. It sounded like someone walking very far away. I dismissed it at first. Probably another hunter, I thought. People were often out at this time of year. But a few minutes later, our dogs suddenly went ballistic. They started barking furiously, a frantic, aggressive sound that wasn't normal. They were all staring in the same direction, raising hell. Johnny and I immediately jumped out of the tent. I flicked on my flashlight and swept the beam across the plains. There was nothing, no person, no animal. But the dogs would not shut up. A knot of dread began to form in my stomach. "Let's unleash the dogs," I said to Johnny. "Maybe they'll chase whatever it is and quiet down. We can get back in the tent." The moment we unclipped their leashes, they shot off into the darkness like they were chasing the devil himself. Johnny and I quickly retreated into the tent. We had been inside for only a few minutes when a voice called out from the darkness. The voice was so clear, so close that a jolt of ice shot through my entire body. "Hey, Johnny," the voice drawled, a chillingly casual tone. "Eating all by yourselves? Where's our share?" My hands were instantly drenched in sweat. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I could hear it in my own ears. We looked at each other, and without a word, we both began praying, our voices frantic, desperate whispers in the suffocating confines of the tent. After a few moments, the voice stopped. The dogs went quiet. It was as if the world had suddenly been muted. About 15 minutes passed in that dead silence, and then the feeling returned. The soft sound of footsteps outside the tent, but this time they weren't far away. They were right next to us. 2 minutes later, something slapped the canvas of the tent. Hard. A voice called my name. Open up. My whole body was shaking, but I took a deep breath, invoked God's name, and unzipped the tent flap. Standing there were 3 men. They were unnaturally tall, their features indistinct in the gloom, but it was immediately clear they were not ordinary people. They greeted us, then asked why we were there. Before we could answer, one of them spoke again, his voice low and resonant. "We are believers. This is our path. We were passing through and saw you were in trouble." He gestured vaguely into the darkness. "You need to leave this place as fast as you can. If you don't, they will not leave you alive." It was as if they had never been there at all. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get out of there right then. But Johnny was stubborn. "I'm not leaving without my dogs," he insisted. So we decided to wait. It wasn't long before the atmosphere began to warp again. We heard noises carried on the wind, sometimes laughter, sometimes weeping. Then a blood-curdling shriek pierced the night. "You won't survive today." Narrative 3. The Watcher in the Alps. There are places in this world, ancient and beautiful, that hold a profound indifference to human life. The mountains, especially. They tolerate our presence in the daylight, allowing us to marvel at their majesty. But when night falls, the mountains belong to themselves and to the things that have always called them home. To trespass in that darkness is to invite a kind of attention you are not prepared for. My name is Leo. I'm originally from the States, but I've been living and working in Italy for the past few years. This story happened just last month, and I can honestly say I don't think I will ever be able to even consider camping at night again. The incident involved myself and a good friend of mine, Marco. We both share a deep love for nature and the mountains. The region of Italy where we live is surrounded by them. By day, the landscape is breathtakingly beautiful. But at night, the atmosphere changes completely. We planned a simple overnight camping trip for a Sunday. On Saturday, we got all our gear ready. Tent, blankets, a small stove for coffee, phones, power banks, the usual. We left home around 6:40 p.m. The spot we were heading to was about an hour away. By the time we arrived and found a spot, it was nearly 8 p.m. The cold was already biting. We saw 1 or 2 other families had set up camps, but they were a good distance away from us. It was comforting, though, to know we weren't completely alone in the vastness. We found a suitable clearing and set up our tent. Everything felt normal. The air was cold, but still peaceful. We decided to make some coffee first, to warm up and relax. It was while we were making the coffee that I felt it, a sudden, powerful rush of air, as if something had sped past right behind us. I was startled for a second, but then I rationalized it. It's cold, we're in the mountains, it must have just been a strong gust of wind. I said as much to Marco, and we dismissed it as our imaginations getting the better of us. But the unsettling feeling didn't go away. We were still sipping our coffee when we heard it, the distinct sound of someone walking just behind our tent. These weren't normal footsteps. They were light, careful, stealthy. I grabbed my flashlight and went to check. There was nothing there. No person, no shadow, no movement. We went back inside the tent, but the mood had shifted. The silence now felt heavy, oppressive. Around 9:25 p.m., I saw a shadow move across the canvas of the tent, as if someone had just walked past. I slowly unzipped the tent just a crack and peered outside. There was only deep darkness. I couldn't see anyone, nor could I see any footprints. Marco and I were both feeling distinctly uneasy now. We decided to put a movie on to distract ourselves. We were still scrolling through titles when the footsteps started again. This time, the sound was unmistakable. Someone was walking very slowly, and to our horror, they were circling our tent, over and over. We could see their shadow falling across the canvas as they passed. I swear, despite the freezing cold, my palms were sweating. My heart was pounding so hard the sound was thrumming in my ears. We decided we had to get out of there. The car was parked about a 15-minute walk away. We said a prayer under our breath, gathered our courage, and yanked the zipper open. There was nothing there. We both stepped outside. The moment we did, we heard what sounded like someone sprinting away from the back of the tent and into the darkness. We rushed to look, but again we saw nothing, just the endless black and the profound silence. 2 or 3 minutes passed. Then the footsteps returned, sometimes sounding very close, sometimes distant. We couldn't even tell which direction they were coming from. Then, suddenly, behind a tree about a 5-minute walk from us, we saw them, 2 eyes glowing in the dark. The light was so bright, it was as if someone had switched on a pair of tiny, intense flashlights. The second we aimed our phone flashlights at them, the eyes vanished. That was the moment our nerve broke completely. We left everything, the tent, the gear, all of it, and we ran. I should mention that by this point, the other families were gone. We were completely alone out there. It was around 11:30 p.m. We didn't even know which direction we were running in. We were just running for our lives. I had the terrifying sensation that we weren't being chased by one person, but by several. Marco fumbled for his car keys and hit the unlock button, hoping the chirp of the alarm would guide us. The car was about a 4-minute run away. We somehow made it, scrambled inside, and started the engine. But even as we sped away, we could hear the footsteps, right behind the car, keeping pace with us until we were completely out of that forest. We spent that night in a hotel. The next morning, we told the local authorities what happened. They just said that these kinds of incidents happen from time to time, and that anyone who stays the night does so at their own risk. We went back later that day to retrieve our things. We found marks on the tent, claw marks. The canvas was sliced in several places. To this day, I don't know what it was, but I do know that that night, that silence, and the sound of those footsteps, they changed something inside a person. The feeling of pure terror we faced that night is something I don't think I'll ever be able to truly put into words. Narrative IV, the murmur of the lake. There's a saying, still waters run deep. People go to the Great Lakes of the North seeking tranquility, a mirror for the sky, a moment of peace. But some places are not peaceful. They are merely quiet. And in that quiet, ancient things wait, the things that were there long before the roads were carved, and will be there long after we are gone. What we felt that night by Lulusar Lake, I still don't have a name for it. I'm not sure I want one. My name is Adam, and this happened a couple of summers ago in June. Even thinking about it now sends that same cold wave washing through me. There were 4 of us, old friends. We had planned it for weeks, a trip to the northern areas, a couple of days of camping, a break from everything. We set out from our hometown with all the gear, food, tent, blankets, a gas stove for tea, everything. The mood was light. We spent the drive laughing, taking pictures, making videos. There was no hint of the strange night that lay ahead of us. We reached Naran, stopped for a bit, and then decided to head for Lulusar Lake. It was new territory for us. As soon as we left Naran, the road and the air both began to change. The higher we climbed, the colder it got, and the more desolate the road became. But it was daytime, the sun was out, and everything looked beautiful. After about an hour and a half, we arrived at the lake. It was late afternoon. The view was breathtaking. The water, the mountains, the silence, the crisp, cold air. We were all thrilled. We'd picked the perfect spot. We quickly found a place to set up camp. The ground was a bit hard, but manageable. We pitched the tent, set our gear aside, and started making tea. As we sat there, sipping our tea and talking, it felt like a perfectly normal, peaceful evening. The kind of evening that makes you feel like life is simple and good. After sunset, we decided to make dinner. By then, the light around the lake was fading fast. The place that had been so enchanting by day began to change its colors. The cold intensified, the air grew damp, and the silence, which had earlier felt so serene, now began to feel heavy. We cooked, ate, and talked for a while longer. Then we all headed into the tent to sleep. None of us said that the place felt strange. I think we were all trying not to overthink it. But the truth is, the moment I lay down in my sleeping bag, I realized it for the first time. The night here was too quiet, a silence so absolute that the slightest movement would feel like an explosion. We had been lying there for maybe half an hour when, suddenly, a loud noise erupted from right outside our tent. It was a loud thud, as if something heavy had been dropped directly onto our tent. We all jolted awake, hearts pounding. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then one of my friends, Ben, unzipped the tent flap and peered outside. There was nothing. The deep, dark silence of the mountains had returned. The only sound was the faint whisper of the wind coming off the lake. He closed the tent, and we all tried to convince ourselves it was just a rock fall or a chunk of ice from a nearby ledge, but we knew it wasn't. We lay there in the darkness listening, and then a new sound began. It was the sound of a woman crying, a heartbreaking, mournful sob, and it was horrifyingly close. We were frozen in our sleeping bags, every muscle tensed. The crying continued for what felt like an eternity, and then it changed. The sobs twisted into high-pitched manic laughter. It echoed across the water, sounding both distant and right outside our tent at the same time. That was when true terror set in. We started praying, whispering the words over and over, our voices trembling in the dark. As soon as we started, the laughter stopped, just cut off. The silence that followed was somehow even more terrifying. An hour passed, then another. Eventually, one of my friends, Chris, whispered that he desperately needed to use the bathroom. We decided it wasn't safe for anyone to go alone. So, Chris and I cautiously exited the tent, armed with a powerful flashlight. While Chris was taking care of business a little ways away, I stood guard, sweeping the flashlight beam across the desolate landscape. That's when I heard it, the crunch of footsteps on the gravelly shore of the lake, slow, deliberate steps getting closer. I whipped the flashlight in the direction of the sound, and the footsteps stopped. I saw nothing, just the dark water and the rocks. I held the beam there for a long moment, then slowly swept it away. The moment the light left the spot, the footsteps started again. I shone the light back. They stopped. I moved it away. They started. A cold, horrifying realization washed over me. Whatever was out there was playing with us. We scrambled back to the tent, our hearts hammering against our ribs. "We're leaving," I said. "Now." No one argued. We began packing in a frantic, silent rush. Every rustle of fabric, every zip sounded deafeningly loud. The whole time we had the suffocating feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. We threw everything into the car, jumped in and sped away, not even daring to look in the rearview mirror until we had put a few miles between us and that cursed lake. When we finally did glance back, my friend Dave, who was in the passenger seat, let out a choked gasp. I followed his gaze. There, standing exactly where our tent had been, was a tall, dark figure. A silhouette against the faint starlight, perfectly still, just watching us go.